Hello.
You two today.
Say
Oh,
that
yeah.
again.
I just said, how are you both doing today?
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. Just really happy you're here. Really, really happy you're here, Erica-Jayne.
Yes.
A little bit more than usual. Don't know why. Yeah, really. I'm like really, really appreciative that you're here. I don't know. It's a
Well,
big deal.
me
It's a very
too.
big.
I'm
Yeah. How are you? How are you,
appreciative that
Erica-Jayne?
I'm
How are you?
here, and I'm appreciative that both of you are here as well.
Ah,
I'm good. I'm good.
yeah, we're full of the joys of the world. As reading a poem and a story and another poem and just all sorts of stories. We never even got to any of Sue's okay stuff.
Well, that's the way it
Fun
goes.
stuff, fun stuff, fun stuff. Yeah, and stuff. Yeah, capital diplomacy story actually. So
Oh,
it'll
cool.
go into the course. So yeah, we'll go through it then. Yeah, yeah. Very cool. We're working hard on that. We're working hard on that. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff. Very keen on that. Very keen on that. What have you been thinking about? What have you been feeling?
Let's see. I've
Oh,
been. Whoop, go ahead.
I was going to say before you start because that's something you can easily recall. So I don't worry about interrupting you. Right. An important point I do want to share. Very, very important point. And this is about the
That yeah,
translation mechanism. Right.
translation
So I call it the translation mechanism, and it is a particular skill that I pay attention to. It is the skill that falls between theory and practice.
Okay.
What goes on in between the two, right? There's a translation that we have to make of taking that theoretical understanding
Right.
and actually putting it into practice. When we understand that as an abstract skill, as an abstract understanding, we can then take any theory pretty much and say, oh, I know how translation in general works. I know in general how things get from theory into practice.
Right.
And now we can, okay. And then you can start to see, is this actually realistic or not? How long is it going to take? What all is involved? Oh, you're so far away with your theory, forget it. This will take forever. Like, in
Right.
other words, if I'm a soldier in the field and my commanding officer is saying this, I'm saying, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. Yeah. So, or you say, oh, that'll work, that'll work, that'll work. And you follow the guy and you're happy to follow him because his plan, even though it seems crazy, you can make that translation and say, no, this will work in practice. And you follow his crazy plan. So it is supremely valuable. Not only that, but it leverages our confidence exponentially, and we
Right.
can actually learn to do things fairly quickly. I was sharing some examples. I learned that's how I drove a car for the first time, stick shift. I understood it. I had already practiced that. I just got in and drove. That was it. End of story. It's not that I had any great skill or aptitude. I'd simply made that conscious, deliberate effort to do so. So same thing with slicing 2-liter water bottles in half with a samurai sword
Mm,
without knocking and spilling, stuff like that. You just have to understand, and when you understand the translation mechanisms, it's really powerful. So I was saying, like, Kay was talking about riding a bicycle or the treadmill or whatever, new things. Well, not that the bicycle is particularly new, but it's a relearning. But I was saying, use those opportunities when you do put into practice new things to
mhm.
pay attention to the theoretical and then to particularly pay attention to that translation mechanism, that
Right.
psychology, because it's a deep, deep psychology of learning. And that's what we want to understand, the psychology of learning, that translation mechanism between theory and practice. Once we know that, we can take any abstract conception and put it into practice, right? We
Right.
can get to use it pretty much right away or quickly, yeah? Or without all sorts of rigmarole attached. It is an incredibly potent and useful skill.
Yeah.
Big, big, big deal skill. So, yeah, so that's a nice thing for your dictionary of power.
Right.
The application or translation mechanism, I call it.
Mhm.
So yeah, the translation between theory and practice, in other words,
Yeah. I like it.
very, very potent. So one thing I do find particularly useful, and it stands me in ridiculously good stead, is to pay acute, exquisite attention to the psychology of learning.
Hmm.
Right, right. I mean, I feel that you are quite a genius at the psychology of understanding.
The psychology of understanding.
Of understanding, yes.
Understanding.
You extrapolate. You go through
Right.
all the side tunnels. I think, was it you that we were talking about? I said, tunnels can't exist on their own. All tunnels need side tunnels to exist
Interesting.
for maintenance, for support, for drainage, for air, for all sorts of stuff, right? So tunnels can't exist in it. So when we go down an exploration, it's those side tunnels which really make the thing work and able to actually exist and survive and function. All those side tunnels. It's like a taproot. No taproot is bare, right? Like we see a carrot, which is a taproot. But before when you get a carrot out the ground, it's got those little hairs and little side tendrils that come, right?
Right.
Very important. So, okay, it's an
Yeah.
extreme case. But when you look at other kinds of roots, they go sideways. They don't just go with the main core root. There's all those side roots. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what gives body, it gives stability, it gives anchorage, it gives a wider connectivity. It's very, very, very important. And I feel that you are a real master and a genius at, real wizard. I don't want to say master, real wizard and a genius at. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, Beena? All right, something exceptional that you do this. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unreal. We were talking about it earlier. Yeah. Having a little mini Erica love fest there, but okay, it's what we do. Well, we discern, we think about it, and we're paying attention to what's going on.
Right.
Now, the question becomes how much of it results in application?
Mm-hmm.
I do see this. I keep asking you, how are you feeling? How do you feel differently? How have you changed? That application is the key. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying attention to it because we want to pay attention ourselves. Yes, I've thought this thing through. Let's say trust, choice,
Right.
love. I thought it through. How do I apply it? How do I apply it?
Right.
Not am I applying it? Yes, I am applying. Not will I apply it? Am I going to? Not the intent to apply, but the actual process of application,
Mm-hmm.
which is different. Because you can apply it, and then the next time you come, how did I apply? I don't know. I just did because I wanted to, right? So
Right.
how exactly to understand the process of application? This is what I'm talking about. That
Mm-hmm.
application, the technology, that application methodology. That would be the power term, I guess. Application methodology.
Mm-hmm.
This is what is very potent to pay attention to, and it's hard to articulate precisely what it is. You have to pay attention because we all learn in different ways. So just paying attention to the conception of an application methodology that coexists, that the abstract one, that is the similar processes for all application of
Mm-hmm.
learning from knowing into practice. When we see the abstract similarities, that's what we're after. And
Right.
this is our entire dictionary of power. It's always about those abstract similarities that applies across a wide range of
Mm-hmm.
fields. Yes?
Interesting. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool stuff. Very, very cool stuff. Very potent. So I
Yeah.
wanted to just share that with you because it's such a it's not in any of the sessions also specifically, unless I guess we make a course on learning itself, which might not be a bad idea, actually a very good idea. Actually, I will do that. It will probably fall under the facilitation program. Somebody specifically wants to learn to be a facilitator, but of course this is valuable whether you want to be a facilitator or not,
Right.
because that really is all about the psychology of learning and how to facilitate learning specifically. Now, again, we don't have to apply it to others, we can apply it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why it's been on my mind a bit too. Yeah, very cool, very cool. Anyway, you were saying what was going on.
Um, let's see. What has been going on? Um, well, one of the things I've been thinking about this week, I've been listening to Dr. Shafali's book again. I finished some of the other books I was listening to, so I've been listening to hers again. And I've several things have come up about this, but I think it started with her about um, I don't know what exactly to call it, being not open to your emotions exactly, but basically sort of passively observing your emotions rather than trying to, like, having an immediate reaction to them and trying to change them or whatever, becoming immersed in them or whatever, but to be able to just sort of observe the emotion and let it be, let it, run its course or whatever without getting super involved in it, I guess. And something that she said in a part that I read recently that was really interesting and I've been thinking a lot about was she was talking about kids and kids getting really immersed in their emotions and then parents reacting poorly to that. Like if a child is really anxious about something or having some particularly strong sort of negative emotion, that parents a lot of times at first will sort of attempt to empathize, but it's not really empathy. It's trying to get the child to stop feeling that way. They don't want them to feel the negative emotion anymore, so they sort of quote unquote empathize, try to make them feel better. When that doesn't work, then the parent gets anxious and starts having a negative reaction, whatever. And so she was saying that, and this was so interesting. I haven't heard it phrased quite in this way, and it was really interesting, and I've thought about it a lot. That basically, and she said, anxiety in and of itself is just an emotion. It's normal, that human beings experience from time to time, and the and scrambling and doing things to try to stop from feeling it. That's where we really get ourselves into trouble. And I was thinking about that, I hadn't necessarily thought about it in those terms before, that so many of the negative emotions that I think have been problematic in the past, mostly because I'm sure it's all rooted in fear, but it's in some cases afraid of feeling that way. In other cases, sort of ashamed of feeling that way. But in either case, not, having this strong emotion of not wanting to feel that way or feeling like I shouldn't feel that way. And that caused all kinds of problems. So that was interesting. She was talking about how one of the things that we can do for our kids is to teach them to not be afraid of their emotions, but B, to teach them how to address fear appropriately. And to not, when you're afraid of something, again, similar concept, don't be afraid of fear. Don't get locked up by fear and just avoid situations that make you uncomfortable, that make you afraid. Part of what we have to learn how to do is to sit with fear and to really approach it sort of observationally and look at it from different perspectives and work with yourself on how to address the fear instead of just running away or avoiding or whatever. So I've been thinking a lot about that. I thought that was interesting. And I do think, I'm realizing, very similar, I think, to the whole vein of perfectionism and of fear of practice and, not ever wanting to make a mistake at something, avoiding things that I wasn't immediately good at doing. I think there's a major thread for me for most of my life of not knowing how to handle fear appropriately. And, basically seeing fear itself as something to be avoided at all costs. And, something makes me
wow, big deal.
the other direction, instead of sitting with that, getting to the bottom of it and letting it be, not having a goal to be, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I need to completely eradicate this and figure out how to never feel it again, but to really allow that to be and have that be an appropriate thing instead of something that's controlling me or, being not holding any value in particular.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. So if I could kind of abstract that and come at it from an overview recap point of view, this related to something that came up this morning. There was a post in the group that said, if you could live anywhere rent free, where would you live?
Interesting.
All right. So what are the questions you expect people to say? The answers.
Hawaii. I don't know.
Right. It's that's a good start. Okay. Hawaii, etc. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Right. But now I want to use this as a mechanism for dealing with fear. The example that I want to say. Let's start by getting our brains to say, hey, wait a second, brain. This is a conventional, typical question. I refuse to answer it conventionally. I want to answer it differently. So my brain, the first thing that I did, and I said that, my brain says, okay, first choice, Fort Knox.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just for, I said, well, okay, let's get real now. It's not all that exciting and attractive a place, but what are some other options? And I said, well, what about the Vatican, the White House, Disneyland?
New York is
What's the place? Taj Mahal, New York Stock Exchange. Exactly. There's all sorts of fantastic places to live, right? The Palace at Versailles, and the Meteora monasteries. You know the Meteora monasteries?
I don't.
Google it real quick. Just on this. Just Meteora. Meteora monasteries, Greece. It'll come up right away, I'm pretty sure. And look at the images. It's one of Beena and I's favorites. But what about the Louvre?
What was it? Meteora what? Monastery.
Monasteries. Or just Meteora, Greece. Just Meteora, Greece. That'll come up. Meteora. Meteora. Yeah, just Meteora, Greece will come up.
Yeah, that's neat.
And then it is all of the monasteries on those tall columns up in the mountains like that. Beena liked the psychological mood of it. This is what attracted Beena, right? So, but again, the point here is people say that they tend to think of places, countries, cities, but they don't think in again. For me, it's if I could choose to live anywhere, what do I get access to? Living in the White House, you get access to the whole world, or United Nations. It'd be a great place to live, right? Or the Louvre, same thing. It's not just the art around you, but the people also, right? So we want to look at the fuller picture, look at my intent. What do I really want? I want connectivity. I want access. I want climate, not just our climate from a weather point of view, but I want the climate. I meant to mention this to Kay, and I forgot to say we want to look at climate in terms of ideological climate, psychological climate, emotional climate. Again, if you might find a place that's got perfect weather, but you deep in the heart of redneck world, no good. Which is what Kay was saying, right?
Yeah.
We want to look at climate in all aspects of the issue. So again, my point is that if we go in from the get go and you set your mind from the start to say, oh, I want to go into this and not respond in the usual typical ways. That opens up the box. And it's very similar to that translation mechanism to say, hey, when we are learning, we want to set aside these beliefs of conventionality. This is key. This is absolutely critical. What are they doing?
Well, Sarah is doing all kinds of bizarre. I am absolutely having a horrible time concentrating today. Every little noise thing happening is just like so.
Okay. We'll take that into cognizance. Don't worry. It's all right. So it happens.
Yeah, I can. Like chewing all over herself and licking and making all kinds of disgusting noises. I don't know. She drove the baby. Yuck. Anyway. All right.
That's all right. So again, with same process as that learning uh, um, the translation mechanism, the learning mechanism, when we apply this to our thinking mechanism, to automatically say, I don't want to think out the usual box. I want to think differently. I don't want to do the conventional. When I take the conventional out of the equation and I say, I do not want to do the conventional, this is different to saying, I want to think outside the box. The moment I say, I would say, oh, what is that? What is that? I don't know what that is. But when I say, I don't want to think conventional, it's like this whole thing that Kay was talking about. Her focus on not being negative and how transformative that is and how remarkably positive that is. Same thing. Don't think conventional. You see a question that's being asked. First thought, I don't want to answer this conventionally. Look what fun we had with that question, right, Beena? Instead of we said, okay, Canada, New Zealand, wherever, Pakistan, I want to live in, where as soon as we stopped outside the box, it shifted the whole thing. Like living in the Vatican. If I could live anywhere, so, well, okay, I choose to live in the Pope's room. I hang out with the Pope. That'd be kind of cool. I might not particularly even care for the Pope, but well, that certainly would be interesting just to get to see him in his daily considerations and all that stuff. Or the Dalai Lama or whoever, not that I care much for him either, but
Right.
I'm just saying it changes the possibilities. It opens us up. Now, let's apply this to your point about fear.
So you could just
Beena said the airport.
yeah, you could just see everything.
The airport.
Saying if you-
Exactly. It opens us up. Take your now take this thing. Where do you want to live when it comes to fear?
where
See,
what
don't think conventionally. In other words, okay, we're tweaking it a little bit, but how do you want to deal with fear? Not conventionally. Throw that out, right? The usual, conventional, typical is not on the table. So now you can't say your usual, typical was what? Retreat, lager up, put up barriers, etc. Not the typical. Well, what are other options now? What about laughing?
right.
It's a great way to deal with fear, right? Particularly in the context that you're talking about, not real physical threat. You're not dealing with a lion trying to chomp you, which is okay, jump up into the tree. That's it. You have limited options when it comes to that type of thing. We are talking about emotional, psychological, and spiritual fear, correct? For the most part, with very, very, the chances of physicality is not really an issue. So okay, what are my conventional options? It was always retreat, hunker down, be defensive, avoid, etc. But we said no, none of that. Those are all my conventional ways. What are my other options here? Now it gets exciting. Like I said, laughter. This is a unbelievable tactic, right?
Right.
Yeah. And just power pause. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about advancing without aggression?
Right. Yeah.
What are you saying? What's going on? Right? Oblivion. I'm oblivion to your aggression. I'm oblivion to the fear, to the nastiness, right? All this other stuff. I just want to know what's going on. So eager interest. It's like, wow. What does that do to somebody who's trying to do this? You're not playing their game. They cannot dance with you in the usual way because you're not dancing. You're just doing something else entirely, right?
One of the things that Dr. Shefali used as an example that I thought was interesting was she used an example of if there was somebody that had come to see her had a daughter who was really scared of elevators and like refused to open them, and they kept having to go into high-rise buildings and take the stairs and all these different things. And she said she gave all these examples of different things to do for the child. The mother said, I totally understand because I had a major fear of heights when I was a kid. And so, I'm really empathizing with her. And so we just don't ever take the elevator. We just always take the stairs or we do something else because I totally understand. And Dr. Shefali was saying, I forget, she said there's a difference between empathy and I forget the phrase she used, but it was like, I can't remember what the word was, but it was sort of becoming completely immersed in this with
right. Yeah, I know what you're saying in the word.
That, in that case, you're not helping your child confront their fear.
Yeah.
You're just saying, that's fine, just avoid it. I'm right there with you. I totally understand. So let's just not do that. and that doesn't really help the child any more than telling them to suck it up and, just dragging them onto the elevator would. And so she was saying,
Empathy and identifying.
yeah, that would be a possible one. I can't remember what she said. I'll have to look.
There's a more intense word than identifying. It's when you really so become that you're almost taking their place. You're replacing them in a way. Yeah.
But she used several examples of different ways to come about or to come at that situation from her suggestion. And one of them was, she said you could take the child's favorite stuffed animal or toy or whatever and say, okay, I'm going to take the bear or whatever on the elevator with me, and you go up the stairs and we'll meet you, up on the next floor. And then we can ask the bear if he had a good time, if he was fine on the elevator, or if he didn't, if he hated it and didn't enjoy it. And if he did have a great time, then why don't we try riding the elevator down all together? And if he didn't, then you can help me teach him, help me get him over this fear.
Externalize the fear, yeah.
That riding on an elevator is safe and that it's okay. And I thought that was an interesting concept for me, it was basically, it reminded me of using stories to write out your experiences and then looking at from a different perspective. So write that in a story and then
Erica,
figure out how to face that fear. Okay, I'm not trying to own fear. I need to figure out how to help this other person face this fear. And that's an interesting leveraging point.
Yes. So again, if we go to what we are talking about, abstract modalities of cognition, of understanding, right? We're looking at the abstract here. So if we take this abstract of the story with the child and its teddy bear and overcoming the fear, what are the abstract tools and techniques that were used? Not being specific, but really zoomed out.
Tools and techniques. Well, in that case, I think a big one was perspective shifting.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking sort of like diplomacy almost.
Yes, diplomacy, absolutely, which is a gentle way of getting inside somebody's position.
Right.
And understanding it from their shoes, but raising alternative courses of action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was about the gentleness and consideration. So this act of saying with a teddy bear, this is extreme diplomacy, because now you're enlisting this external perspective, but also it's consideration for your dilemma, but from a gentle perspective, right? Because now you got to be considerate towards the teddy bear.
Right.
Yeah. And you enlisting the goodness of the child to deal with the teddy bear. So again, the abstract point is you enlisting their goodness, their willingness to help, their willingness to solve and resolve. Furthermore, what you did there, yes, the perspective shifting, that's what you the first go to. This is the key to it. By externalizing them and separating them from the problem, just that one simple single maneuver provided them a view on the fact that the problem is external, and thus it introduced the concept that it is solvable.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right there. Before, when people are stuck in a bubble of awareness and they say, oh, they're not thinking, it's obvious to us that it's foolish, but we need to get inside their heads completely and utterly. This is the core of capital D diplomacy, by the way.
Yeah.
You get so completely in that you can see it from there. Now you combine them and outside, and you find a way to gently, with consideration. This is what the other factor of capital D diplomacy, with consideration to merge the two. So we enlisted that child's goodness, her care to help the teddy bear. Now her thought, well, okay, but it's worse for the. she knows it's bad. She wants to help the teddy bear because she wants to help herself. So there you go. And you provide them a way out that's gentle. So the other thing is that externalization and the ability to not have to admit that, or at least the awful truth part of that equation there. When it's my own self, the moment I acknowledge that I have a problem, I'm also acknowledging that I haven't solved it by myself.
Right.
And if I have a problem, one, it means I'm a problem to you. Two, I'm foolish for not having solved it by myself. Three, I'm even more foolish for having had the problem in the first place. So I tend to hold on to it because I don't want to look foolish.
Right.
Right. But by now switching it onto the teddy bear's problem, okay, my problem is forgotten. And if I help the teddy bear solve his, mine, okay, well, I kind of, I avoided that stress.
Right.
Diplomacy. Yeah. But if we see it from the abstract, then we can translate it into any other problem of a similar nature. Externalize it, avoid forcing dealing with the awful truth. Find a gentle way to deal with the awful truth. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. That's the key always in all these things, the awful truth. Willingness to deal with the awful truth. It's the heart of it. And of course, the other key thing here was really getting into the actual psychology of the person involved. Now, I am keen to know exactly just again, my translation mechanism was to know, yeah, it's all fine and well, you say it, but that was one kid. Did it actually work with that kid? Number one. And two, does it work with similar situations with kids in general?
Right.
I want to know because I need to know the translation mechanism, what's going on here. So I need to actually test and experiment with this a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can see, to me, I can see that if the kid is at least in a space that they are halfway open to hearing you. The biggest problem with dealing with that is sometimes kids get so close they just don't hear whatsoever.
Right.
But because the kid was willing to go up the stairs, right, that at least was, there was some ability to reason with them or to just to talk. They had their ear. They weren't closed. You weren't saying, "Oh no, you have to go in the thing," which will shut them down. Oh, sure, you can go upstairs. Furthermore, I think the psychology there, depending on how old the kid is, they might not have particularly cared to go up the stairs by themselves, putting a little bit of disincentive for that. Oh, come ride in the elevator with us and Teddy. Much more fun and happy. Okay, so now you're getting an additional incentive. Right. And key to this too, from a psychology of learning, just a pure psychology point of view, when we get inside a bubble psychology, we realize that sometimes things are the difference between a solution and resolution can come from a simple, ridiculously simple awareness that is so simple, so obvious, but we don't even think that this is what's missing. We just don't understand. How can you not? It just makes no sense to us. But literally, that brain has not gone from where it's at, where it's stuck at, to the very next obvious step. Just haven't made that step.
Right.
So sometimes we need to provide those. It's amazing.
True. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool to look at this. I'm looking at this overview methodology of thinking, of abstracting, of understanding, and thus of application. Right? All about that ability to apply this, make it useful. So how does this apply to fear? Let's go back to your fear thing that you were thinking about fear, how to deal with it differently.
What were you thinking? I did not know that was going to be vocal.
I'm sorry. I'm writing out
Sorry.
notes, thinking about them.
Take it time. Take it time. Take it time.
After that, let me get this out real quick.
No worries. We'll slow it all down. We'll go nice and slowly and gently and soothingly and happily. We got time. We have. We'll be tranquil, right, Beena? Beena, do you think I can be tranquil?
No.
Yeah, I guess not.
Uh.
Oh dear. Oh well. Sometimes Beena's got the headset on and she puts on mute and she's not at the laptop. So she has to come back to it. That's why the pause is a little extra long. Do you think I can be tranquil, Beena?
I'm very cautious of putting anything about you.
You might as well say, not in my experience, no.
I'm very cautious of making any statements about you with absolute no.
I
So
was just having fun. I was just having fun.
I'm choosing to not responding to this, maybe.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Very diplomatic, Beena, very diplomatic. Yeah, always when you're taking notes, just say, "Oh, taking notes." That's all you have to say, Erica, and we'll wait
Okay.
till you're done. We might prattle along mindlessly while you do so, but all right,
Uh,
quite possible. Quite possible.
I just forgot to ask Kay that I was writing my verbal selfie.
Hmm.
I thought that I was just mentioning that's one of the participant of this Impact uh, pull that that topic of clearing and cleaning, spring cleaning, and all that. So I'm not sure that if she's comfortable with that, I'm not mentioning her name.
Very funny, Beena.
Funny,
Yeah, well, I forgot to ask Kay this, but I'm not mentioning her name, so I'm
but still, I'm just mentioning the
comfortable.
story that okay, how this thing came up in my mind.
I'm just
Uh,
teasing you, but it just sounded very obvious that you're talking about somebody.
no.
Very funny. All
Okay.
right.
Mhm.
So, okay, I got my notes written out. So I'm sorry. What were you asking?
I was asking about in connection to fear,
Mm.
thinking differently about fear, not responding in those particular fear circumstances or that range in the usual conventional ways, and particularly also your usual conventional ways.
Mhm.
What are other options here, right? Even if we have to create them or imagine them, what are other options? We already said laughter. What else, baby? What
Right.
were you thinking of in particular? That's what I'm keen to hear.
The thing I was thinking of in particular was the thing I shared about sort of using a different perspective to come at it,
Mm.
come at it from sort of an outside point of view by writing it out in a story or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yes, yes. The writing it in a story, it's ridiculously powerful. One, you get to externalize, and you get that you're now not feeling it because it's out there. So you're not immersed and tight in it. And when we are feeling fear, particularly, it just limits the brain. You go into, brainstem, and you're not thinking clearly, right? So when you externalize it, you get that little bit of objectivity, which allows you just that space to, wait, to get you to write it a little differently. Plus, in story, you can get to experiment and change and try stuff that you can't necessarily do inside yourself because your inner bureaucrats are saying, nah, that won't work, nah, and they get all, start slapping stuff down. But in story, you can do what the hell you like.
right,
So, and then, as you get into the story, you say, wow, you know what, this might actually work. This might actually work. And you get to explore with different things. So I highly, highly, highly recommend story. It is a ridiculously powerful mechanism for all sorts of things.
sure. Yeah, it's
And
interesting.
also, yeah, when you write story as opposed to, that's why the Biala series. I could have written a philosophical treatise if I wanted to, which is boring as hell, and nobody would ever want to read it, myself especially. And I'm not writing the Biala series for anybody to read. I'm just writing it for my own joy. To write out all, in a philosophy, that's horrible and boring and a waste of time, and I'm not going to get any value out of it myself from a learning point of view. To write it as a story that I enjoy, and particularly the intent of that story is a practical application of my philosophy. That's the point of it. That's to me what science fiction is. It's the practical implementation of a particular philosophy. Now, in my case, it might be a little bit more philosophical than most, but typically that's the case. There's always philosophy involved, right? You have to think, how does your society work, etc. So it's a practical application. That's the key. When you write story, though, you can add grace and artistry and joy and fun, which is all missing from when you just write your points and philosophy without story, right? So it brings those extra elements, which now shifts it from just regular old learning to play, which is enhanced learning.
Mhm.
So story makes it enhanced learning.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
one of the interesting things, or one of the things I've always found really interesting with the work I've done with Kathy is the what does she call it? No, I don't remember the technical term, but basically going back to, taking a feeling that you're struggling with right now, some anxiety or fear of something that's a problem in the present moment, and then going back to the first time that you remember feeling that way specifically, really tuning into that specific fear and trying to go back to the first time that you experienced that. And what she always directs you to do is once you identify when you first felt this feeling and what the circumstance was and how you were feeling and why this came up, then she'll always say, okay, now as your wise adult self, tell the you that we've gone back to, tell 5-year-old you or 8-year-old you or whatever, what you needed to hear at that point. Wise adult, you speak to that part of you. And what you're really doing is solving the fear and the anxiety for yourself, but it's the same thing as the bear scenario. You, rather than coming at it from, well, I've had this fear ever since I was this age and I still have it, and so I don't know how to help myself. You're leveraging that into, okay, now this is current me talking to past me. So it's not just me talking to myself, it's present me talking to past me, and now I can step outside, sort of separate that, talk to the past me about how to solve this particular fear or issue, and that translates into present you being able to let go of that fear, which is really interesting. I hadn't thought about it necessarily in those terms before, of that being a similar process of sort of separating yourself from the fear and allowing that to be something that you can look at externally and come at outside of that emotion. But it makes perfect sense as to why it works.
Yeah. So how would you apply that in this particular circumstance? And not that you're dealing with fear anymore, but just as an example.
I mean, how would I apply it differently than that, or
just how? Oh, you would apply it exactly? Yeah.
Well, I think that was what I was talking about. Was that is one application of this same concept of being able to separate yourself from being immersed in the fear and the emotion right now, and attaching it to or seeing it from your own perspective from a different or not associating it with you in this present moment, being able to sort of
Sorry, I was meaning more like if you go to a concrete realistic situation, now we do the opposite. Instead of going into the abstract which you just described, to really practicalize it in a particular situation. So, okay, yeah, I'm going to use, for example, this situation. I would say this, I would do that, I would react this way. But I guess really it's too abstract. You can't do that because all you're going to do is just zoom out. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things for me with the work I've done with Kathy. It's not a premeditated, okay, if I'm afraid of this, then I'm going to tell myself that I need to da 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 da. It's all about connecting with the emotions and feelings and fears and whatever that are coming up in that moment. That's one of the really interesting things, I think, is we tend to shove down and sort of disassociate from those feelings as
Mhm.
much as possible
Yes.
because we are afraid.
Yes.
And so it's not often that we actually really feel them and understand what's really happening.
Mm.
So it's really hard to sort of premeditate what kind of plan you're going to have until you're really in
Exactly.
it.
Yes.
And
Yes. You can.
really,
You can.
and then
Yeah.
coming up with an appropriate response right there in the moment as you're
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. That's something else we're working on is anxiety and worry course. And that's exactly, we're right on that stage where, the second module is what exactly is anxiety and worry. And that's precisely it. It is, well, one of the things that causes the real deep anxiety is worry, is this attempt to have a predefined solution to a exact problem. And the anxiety and worry is that you do not have, a rule 32b-1.6.2 for that situation, right? It doesn't work. So it's like, what? And that's the anxiety and fear. But it's a terrible way of doing it. My sister's this classic, she's a executive assistant, but she's got that bureaucrat mindset. She wanted to know the exact thing to do. You cannot. It's impossible. Your brain can't remember all that. No wonder you've got anxiety. I mean, she was on medication for it and all. We got her off of it, but still, it's just ridiculous. Once she understood this how it works, it's all transformed. But yeah, you can't know exactly. You have to have abstract strategies that allow you to adapt in the moment to do so. Yes. All right. So now let's go to, those are strategies that deal with a circumstance in it. What about preemptive strategies to look at the underlying thing and deal with that to start with, the real kind of root problem that caused the whole thing in the first place, right? So and it's just too amazing. Right? Today just seems to be story day, but the post I posted today, and this is a new post. I haven't been posting very many new posts for a while. I've been too busy, but I said, I gotta get back to it because for whatever reason, like all of a sudden, I started getting lots of comments on the website from old posts, Ask Me Ella posts, and I like lots of them every day. So anyway, or at least regularly every day. So anyway, so I started making the new posts, and the post I posted today, exactly on the underlying of what's involved in preemptively resolving this issue, particularly when it comes to fear, anxiety, stress, all of this stuff, right? Unwanted emotions.
Right.
So let's look at this. Oh dear, where's my? Oh, here we go. I was going to say, where's my title? I need my title. Title is very, very important in the stories. Feeling we believe. Right, a bit of a conundrum title here because it goes back and forth either way, like the two girls here. Right, so we feel, we believe, and we believe, we feel, etc. All right, so let's look at this a little carefully. Let me just get that out the way. The more to this is we tend to believe our beliefs result in our feelings. We tend to believe our beliefs result in our feelings. That's what we believe. Or we feel how we feel because of what we believe. But it's also the opposite. We believe what we believe because of how we feel. We believe what we believe because of how we feel. Yeah?
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
repeat that. So it goes both ways. Feeling and belief thus are this continuum, this kind of a loop that goes, right?
Right.
One causes the other causes the one, and either way we do this. Right. And because of how we come to feel, which creates or adopts the beliefs to justify and support how we feel, that original feeling can come about for not much reason at all. That's kind of a big deal there. That original feeling can come about for not much reason at all. But once in place, that feeling or belief, it works both ways, becomes self reinforcing and self justifying as we add to the beliefs to support how we feel, because that feeling is the reality we now substantiate with our beliefs, and vice versa. Right? Once it's in place, the one reinforces the other. But the thing in the first place could have come about from nothing at all. Either the belief is something we adopted or were told to believe, or just came about through happenstance, coincidence, whatever, right? Force of circumstance. But depending on the day and whatever factors influence and affect how we may feel entirely different. And just like that, we now believe differently.
Mm.
This is an amazing thing to me. Our reality is indeed fluid when it comes to perceptions related to feelings, beliefs taken on to support feelings. This is something I actually practice every single day, quite deliberately. I very seldom wake up in the mood that you see me in.
Mhm.
Why? I don't know, right? Well, it's a long story. I can maybe say why. So my very first thing that I do is practice that mood management, right? So I will wake up and I got all sorts of weird expressions on my face, it just how the body, who knows what the hell I get up to in my dreams. I don't know. But nonetheless, so, so here's the magic though. So when I woke up now, I've practiced exactly what the end result of this is and what you were saying, that detachment, that objective perception of not just your feelings, but your beliefs also, both of them together. So I wake up and I'm feeling not so great. Right? Let's just say I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, not that I wake up like that, but just for illustration purposes. So I'll go, just now I will change just the tiniest shift of expression, the least possible one that I can possibly manage. But now I've also, through paying attention, I'm looking at how I perceive the world, not just how I feel, but how I perceive the world. In other
Mm.
words, I might wake up and, oh, the world's a crappy place. It's all miserable and negative and blah, right? In
Right.
other words, I have a perception of reality that's now a belief that is put in place just like that
Right.
because of my feeling.
Right.
But this is the reality. This is how the world is, I say with my whatever expression. That's how the world is.
Mm-hmm.
I tweak that tiniest little muscle that I can possibly manage and shift my expression. Just that one little tweak.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly the world is different. It starts to change. And just like that, my perception of the reality that I thought the world was a particular way, now suddenly the world's a great place and it's wonderful and it's magical. And the next thing, my feeling changes and oh wow, brilliant. Now I'm on top of the world again. Just like that.
Right.
How is this possible? Right? That our reality can change. Belief is connected to feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling is connected to belief. Those two support each other in this self-reinforcing lunatic loop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Doesn't always a lunatic loop. It can be a joyous, magical, wondrous loop, but the two are no less dangerous. Right? It's a lunatic loop, really. Right?
Right.
That lunatic loop, because that's really what it is. It's creating a private reality.
Right.
However, now we say, okay, so let's read through this because it does come to a point. Where it matters is entrenched feelings, deep habitual feelings, which have deeply layered supporting beliefs, which have become convincing, and thus keep supporting the feeling and keeping it in place. It's not a fact, never was, just self reinforcing habit. Again, we get back to our way of impeccability, our big enemy, right? We
Mm-hmm.
tend to believe we need a reason to feel in any particular way. Wow, that's a huge statement right there. We tend to believe we need a reason to feel in any particular way. That belief, when we have a feeling that's come about because of, well, my favorite excuse for weird feelings that come from nowhere is just, let's just say it's gas,
Right.
right? I'm sorry for my example, but it's a potent one because so often you ask doctors, and say, it's just gas. Stop, you're not having a heart attack. You're not going mentally insane. No, you don't have an aneurysm. It's just gas, dang it.
Right.
Slap, slap, right? So, but we tend to believe we need a reason to feel in any particular way. So the moment I feel something, automatically I ascribe a reason to it.
Started attributing
I
it to.
justify it and substantiate it. Now I have a reason. Oh, that's why I feel this way. Oh, okay, well, and the thing starts feeding on itself. Nonsense, absolute nonsense, because of one core root, deep, massive misbelief,
Mm-hmm.
misassociation, right? This is a big deal. This is a very, very big deal. Right. We tend to believe we need a reason to feel in any particular way, but we don't. We can choose how we feel at any given moment. Purely our choice. We can choose how we want to feel purely as an act of will, and then make that chosen and desired feeling our habit and default through through another longer, more sustained act of will. Wow, you know what, Beena? I didn't remember writing all this. That's pretty cool. So, okay, very good. Wow, I wrote it yesterday. Anyway, well, not all of it, but anyway, this is the end here. Anyway, once we realize and are aware of this relationship between feeling and belief, the world changes, and we become the ones to change our world. Oh, that's a cool sentence. Once we realize and are aware of this relationship between feeling and belief, the world changes, and we become the ones to change our world. Feeling and believing is not all there is to us. This is key. Feeling and believing is not all there is to us, right?
Sure.
It's not all there is to us. Before, when we were talking about feeling and believing, it's like, oh my goodness, and we were just involved in feeling and believing. But now it's, whoa. What else is there? There's our character. Once we understand our character is its own entity and a sacred, not scared, oh my goodness, so, and a sacred, inviolate core of us. I wrote scared. I'll edit it in a moment. Right. Once we understand our character is its own entity and a sacred, inviolate core of us, we also understand how feeling and believing are outside our character. What is inside? That's the real question of self, the heart of the matter when it comes to our world. We use feel and believe in service of our character, not the other way around. A mistake all too often made. But realizing how those two are created enables us to avoid the pitfalls of a fragile and insubstantial character. And a picture's courtesy of Beena.
I love it. Is that Coco and somebody? Looks like Coco.
Yeah.
No, maybe that's a chimpanzee.
So, Beena said, oh, I've got pictures for you. I got pictures for you. Okay, all right. Look how magical the pictures. So this is a big deal, right? To not only understand the details and the intricacies of uh, of feeling and believing, but also to understand that they're outside of character, right? That's huge. That's huge. So we have a third space, like you said, to write it out. Yes, because then we can allow our character, our real self, our deep self, our sobriety, our earnestness, we can allow that side to now look at it because we are not doing it from inside belief or feeling. Doing so, the one just reinforces the other and you get into that lunacy loop. No good. But when we can get to that external space, that's where the magic happens, right? That's where the magic happens. So very cool, very cool, very cool. You bringing this up. I'm just astonished at how things get to be so pertinent sometimes. I mean, isn't this article just exactly pertinent to it all right now?
Sure.
Yeah. I better change that scared to sacred. That changes the whole article, doesn't it?
It's true.
The entire article is not our scared inviolate self. That's horrible. Right. Hurry up, Sol, hurry up. Where was that? Okay, and a sacred, inviolate core of us. All right, brilliant.
There's a missing O in 2 in one of those. Right?
Oh. In which ones? And we become the ones to change our world.
After the sacred thing, it's just a little.
Sacred inviolate core of us. We also understand our feeling and
a mistake all too often made at the very bottom of the page.
Yes, thank you, Erica. Oh, good eye. Oh, love it. Oh, dear. Too early in the morning. Beena, you were also responsible here. You were helping me. There were actually a couple of commas that I had to add, but I'll just put it in for now. So. Because I have to go update it on the website also. This is on my blog, and then I post it on the website, and then from there I share it all over. I was sharing with Beena the whole rigmarole of doing the stuff. It's quite a big deal.
It was early in the morning we were doing that, or it was late for us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's both. Yeah. Anyway, it was inappropriate timing. So
He
this
did.
is a cool. I just want to go. Yeah, we got there, Beena. We got. It just was. It's really so potent to what you're saying. And we again we take that whole fear mechanism. The fear produces beliefs. The beliefs reinforce the fear, and here we go in our lunacy loop. I like that lunacy loop or lunatic loop. That's a really potent mnemonic, thing, a term for the dictionary of power. That's
Right.
very cool. That's very cool. But now the key is, as you said, find some mechanism where you can deal with it from a third party perspective. And the key one we want is our true character perspective that sets aside feeling and beliefs. Those don't belong in us.
Right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right. Again, we don't have to deal with both at the same time. We can tackle one only, and it will lead to dealing with the other automatically.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember, but one of the very first exercise, well, it is in module 1, session 1 of Way of Impeccability, it is list all of your beliefs that take time and energy. I don't remember the exact wording,
Right.
but it wasn't like Jocelyn is starting, he started yesterday. He assumed that it was list your negative beliefs.
Mhm.
List all of them.
Right.
We want all of our beliefs listed because all those beliefs result in feelings. And when you start to see, oh, these are positive beliefs, and I said to you, well, based on what? Oh, don't throw them away. They serve a purpose. They give you positive feedback. But realize that just as this really insubstantial, unsubstantiatable, invalid belief gives you positivity, your fear beliefs can be equally invalid and nonsensical. Right? So keep the good ones, throw out the bad ones. But realize that all belief, all things, it's hollow, it's nonsense. They're just beliefs. They're not facts by definition.
Right.
Right? Which brings us to something else now, just to take it all the way to the end, because this is oneness. We always want to go all the way to the end, right?
Right.
What do we build our character with if we cannot do so with beliefs?
Mhm.
It's kind of a self-evident answer. We've mentioned it many times. So it's not a new thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm thinking about when you said that earlier about, getting the character existing outside of your beliefs. That's a really interesting concept to me because I think off the top of my head, my sort of initial is built. If I believe that this is good, then does that determine? But I think when I really think about it, a lot of the things in my character, or what I would think of as my character, are things that I feel like have always been there. And
Yes.
beliefs are, I guess that's one of the interesting things about beliefs is that sometimes other people's beliefs, your are the right thing, go against what your character says is the right thing, and then you have to start. That's where we the anxiety, and
that's where the corruption begins. Yes.
When our character and our beliefs are, butting against each other, then we're like, wait a minute, wait. I guess for me, character is built on impeccability and intent to goodness.
Exactly. Also, would you say that your character is built on your dictionary of power?
Interesting.
To a greater or lesser degree, maybe not every single thing, but in the most part.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I haven't thought about the dictionary of power.
I need to amend my question. Do you think your character now is built on the dictionary of power?
Right.
Because when I said your character, the question is across all of time. It certainly wasn't in the past. Not now as the dictionary of power exists, but in the past, you had impeccability in you always. You had honesty in you always. You had diligence and perseverance and scrupulousness and thoroughness in you always. So in that sense, those terms, just impeccability, which comprises that was your character, no?
Right.
Now we've added particular terms, but if you go back to see, you might not have used the term itself consciously and deliberately, but it was there
Right.
in actuality, not in conception. We are now just deliberately aware of what's going on, which adds to our power and our joy and our purpose and our meaning and our significance, etc. Yes,
Right.
with a deliberateness. But really, if we actually look in way of impeccability, when we look at that self-conception session, it says very clearly the self-conception is based on the building blocks, the foundation stones of your dictionary of power.
Mhm.
And in the dictionary of power module, it says the same thing. We are going to use the dictionary of power as the foundation, the building blocks for our entire system, for our character, our self-conception. It's very key to see those two together. And now we get to the key point of it all. If we look at those entries into your dictionary of power, yes, they are conceptions, but they are a particular type of conception, right? They are self-evident sensibilities.
Mm.
And this is what makes them so different. You can say, okay, impeccability, you can't really say it's a fact. Yes?
Fact.
It's hard to say that. It's a fact, it's conditional, it's dependent. But you can say it's a self-evident sensibility.
Right.
Right? That you can say. And this is the core to it, because it's a sensibility.
Yes.
Give yourself I am through the day. Sorry, Mom has come up
Oh,
with like 7 courses of food over the.
brilliant, 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 brilliant. No problem. It's just nice to see you laugh and happy and joyful. It was necessary. Whatever you did, Kay, thank you. Very necessary. Very necessary. Look at that. Look at that magic beauty, Beena. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, wow. Isn't that beautiful, Beena? Isn't that beautiful? I like to see happy people. I like to see happy people. Yeah, Beena?
Yes, absolutely. Joy.
Fantastic, fantastic. How come you're having 7 courses, by the way?
You what?
How come you're having 7 courses? Seven courses. I don't get the joke. I love it. I love it, but I don't know why it's funny.
Okay.
I feel like the doofus in the schoolyard. Like,
Every time I hear she's got something new.
oh, so what? Kay's having a big pig out party? Is that what's going on?
She started with soup, and then she came back with a full sandwich, and now she's back with a giant 32-liter mug of coffee and a brownie.
Wow, Kay. Wow, Kay. Go, party, Kay, party. Party.
Oh, dear.
Talking about oversized things. So,
Okay. Let's do some perspective shifting.
I think he was talking
let's see.
about you, but
It is 12 ounces. It's not that big of a deal. It's just
Wow, that's massive. That's humongous. That's huge. That's ginormous. That's just gigantic. Wow. How can you drink all that, Kay? It's not that big. It's not. I'm just teasing. I'm just having it up for the fun of it. Yeah.
big giant water cup, and look at her coffee cup next to it.
here's
Oh, and that tiny little thing next to it? That must be Erica's
my
petite dainty cup there.
I
The unfairness of it all, right, Kay? The unfairness of it all. Got it. I'm being discriminated against, I tell you.
mean, with my eating.
She has. She's
This
been
week.
eating like salad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and yesterday afternoon, I got so hungry. I just thought I was going to absolutely broke. And so and I ate one of Joe's apples.
Mm. They're big
They're
too.
really big.
Yeah.
I know. I like that. And today I was still hungry, so I'm just eating.
Wow. But again, Kay, maybe it's that feeling of lightness. It's now you've got all this extra potency of energy,
That's
and
it.
that's why you're eating. It's fantastic. That's fantastic. So talking about outsized things, we had one of the members come on from the group come on to Zoom, and she's chatting to us. She wants to know about wave impeccability. When can I start? Stuff like this. So we're talking to her, and she's doing housework. And anyways, eventually she sits down and she starts to do this with her fingers, and she's rolling something,
Oh,
and the usual motions. And she's chatting to us as things will. But what she's rolling is, I mean, her hands are in this space that I have them now, right? This is the proportion. She's rolling like this. I mean, something that's
Yeah.
probably about that much in diameter. And she's happily rolling this, and the next thing, of course, clouds of smoke started.
was what we thought it was. Wow.
She rolled this. I mean, it's not a doobie because a doobie is typically fairly small. I mean, this thing in South Africa they would call it a zol, which is they don't use the word yeah, but it's appropriate because it's a big fat. I thought she was doing this rolling a cigar actually.
What'd you say it's called in South Africa?
A zol.
Oh, interesting.
Zol, yeah. It's like a blunt, a bigger one, But
Yeah.
it's called a Zol. A big or small, it's called a Zol. Yeah.
Right.
South Africa has got some very unique words for things that are pretty cool. Marijuana is called dacha.
By the way, you missed Syl. Oh, I think you didn't see it probably. Syl read. We were talking about the swearing show.
Oh, yes.
And I
yes.
sent him, I told him that I thought of him because on the episode, I don't think he saw it. Did you see the one where they were talking about damn?
No, I just saw the
Yeah.
first one.
So that episode, they were talking about, like, they were talking about how damn is really a curse. Damnation, I
Oh,
damn you
right.
to hell.
Yeah,
And so
big deal.
a lot of the other
More.
so they were talking about like unusual curses in other languages and other cultures, and one of them was really funny, and it was in Afrikaans.
Oh,
And it made so he read it, because I mean, when you look at it, there's no way I would be able to pronounce it correctly. So he read it, and it sounds very,
It just sounds dreadful. It's a vile language. I was telling Erica-Jayne, the middle town I grew up in we had every nationality from Europe you could think of, and they all spoke the language at home. So of course, one of the first things you do is how do you say the swear words in your native language? And some of them really had to go and figure it out and listen to their uncles, and they didn't always know. But anyway, I was on a mission. I learned I know all the bad words in all the languages. But Afrikaans, oh, it's the champion of them all. It's just no comparison. It's not even close to really go in. I used to have a whole string of like about 30 of these words I could rattle off in a string. It's just too vile and horrible. The things you learn to do. It's just dreadful. It's dreadful.
I know. Yeah, it was
Crazy stuff.
poor Beena had this
But back to our point here. I don't want to lose our earnestness. We were on a very magical point about our character being built up of self-evident sensibilities, and to do this consciously and deliberately, right? This is the magic. This is what we're about. And when we understand that, hey, those self-evident sensibilities, they remain. The feelings, the beliefs, they come and go. They variables, and they variables we can control through energy management, mood management, association management, and attention management. That's the magic. Those association management, that's a self-evident sensibility, no?
right.
It's sensible to manage your association. It's sensible to manage your energy. It's sensible to manage your moods. It's sensible to manage your attention. Oh. These are tools now, techniques that last. I also think of it this way, just in a bigger picture. I very much suspect, much like you shut down your computer and all the stuff goes away, but what lasts is the operating system. No self-evident sensibilities, they go into the operating system, not into the memory files. So I truly feel that, from a death point of view, that's what's going to last, the self-evident sensibilities, those deep core understandings, our character, in other words. I suspect most people have so little that's conscious and deliberate in their character that's really entrenched that we just get it sort of in a vague way. Yeah. I really feel that. I really, really, really feel that. Beena shared a quote here. It's a continuation. I don't know. Is this a quote or you typed this, right, Beena?
I just typed it right there.
Oh,
So,
okay. You wanna read it for us, please?
okay. So our character is a reflection of our deliberate choices. Either we choose to believe in any idea without thinking it through to the end, or we make impeccable choices. Every choice we make is the building blocks of our character.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. I'm gonna add that to the article as a quote
That is interesting.
from Beena B.
This would be a reflection.
Right. I know that's what I was saying earlier, that still said something about our character not being based on our beliefs, that
Right.
they exist separately. And I was saying, upon initial
Right.
thought of that, I would think that your character is based on your belief, or vice versa,
Right.
or whatever. But that the more you think it through, a lot of things that are part of your character are things that have just kind of always
Right.
been there. That's always been.
Right.
And that a lot of times our beliefs get sort of mucked up with other people's beliefs and all these different things. And when your character, when you're being pushed toward a belief that sort of counteracts what exists in your character, then you start getting these anxiety and all this stuff of, okay, wait, I feel differently about this than I think I'm supposed to. And
Your belief can be also can sometimes be based on misapprehension.
Say louder, please. Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting involved in your conversation.
Oh, it's all right. If it's okay with Erica.
I just thought it was interesting that Beena said your now I forgot what I was saying about choices and character. That your character is, I don't remember the word she said, reflection.
Open up your chat, Erica. It's there in your chat.
It wasn't there.
Oh, not. Post it again, please, Beena. I think Beena may have sent it to me.
Reflection of your your choices. No, your character is
a reflection of your choices.
And I was saying, for me, at first glance, I would say your choices are a reflection of
Yeah. It can go either way. Yeah.
and Erica was talking about beliefs and where they come from. And for me, I think more often than I would like to admit, my beliefs have come from misapprehension of things around me. I see something happen. I mean, and that's kind of superstition, really, when you think about it. You don't really understand something, and then you attribute cause to something.
Exactly.
Really,
exactly.
And that's, to me, that's what belief is a lot of times.
Exactly. That's what we were exploring earlier. That loop, that lunatic loop between belief and feeling.
Right.
So we feel something, and now you need a reason why you felt it. You ascribe a belief to it. And then the belief reinforces the feeling. Or you have a belief that you're supposed to feel or think, and then you have to feel something to go with it. We can't separate those two. And they become, like I call them, this lunatic loop. But then we realize there's a third thing, and that's our character. But by the way, Beena's quote is very specific. There's a nuance, sophistication to Beena's thing. Our character is a reflection of our deliberate choices. Big difference. Not just our regular choices, but our deliberate choices. When we deliberately choose, this is when we're building our character, right? Those deliberate choices is the key. Yeah. I mean, if you think back to what really built you as a person, it is those deliberate choices built your character. Not the regular choices built your beliefs and your feelings, but not your character.
Right.
Yeah. So that the deliberate choice is a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. Yeah. Right, Beena?
Yes, this is the key difference for me, because if a person, okay, there are negative people around us also, we can that by their examples, that whatever they are, whatever who they are, it can be an disbelief, it can be it is not about the quality or the how to say that, I don't know, but about the choices you are making, but it is just about the deliberate choices, not regular choices, but deliberately what we choose. It can be positive or negative, either way. And these are the building blocks of our character for me.
So indeliberate, I don't know what the word is, indeliberate, non-deliberate choice often leads to belief, and deliberate choice builds character.
Sometimes we just deliberately choose a belief. We choose it. We just accept it. We deliberately accept some ideas without thinking it through to the end. But it is deliberate because we have this awareness that, okay, we have this ability to not accept anything and practice our thinking it through to the end. But we don't do that. It is not something we just adapted and inherited. No, we choose it and we do that all the time. But yes, we don't actually think it through to the end. So then it becomes a belief for us that, okay, we accept this idea, deliberately accepted this idea, but without having any proof of this, like for what, from where, how, but we do accept that. So this was the difference for me in belief and choices and the deliberate choices. Sometimes because it is hard for us to understand how people can deliberately choose something bad.
Right.
Something stupid, but people do.
Oh yeah.
Me and other people around us, but some people do. So it is a general thing, not just for way of impeccability. People.
I think when people choose bad, it's because they have a mistaken view of what is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then
Exactly.
it's a different thing. Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure Trump thinks that all the things he's done are good because they've all ended up,
I have some doubts about that.
whatever is beneficial, that equals good. Does these things that appear to be bad to everybody else, he thinks it's good because he thinks it's beneficial to himself.
Right.
Mostly people, when they do bad things, and they're not stupid, they're not lunatics, but when they do that, they have some sort of validation and justification,
Oh,
not
yeah.
for making it good. Sometimes what I experience that they don't really think it is good, but they have some justification for doing that.
Right, right.
They just look for some validation. Oh, I'm doing this because it is appropriate for me right now. I'm
Right.
doing this, it is necessary for me. I'm doing this because this is the only way I can do. So they have this thing, understanding in their mind that this is not good, but they just create some justification for that.
But the justification is that inappropriate idea of goodness.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. That is such an incredible, incredible, incredible conception. It is such a powerful understanding. So I wonder, when we talked about self-evident sensibilities, is inappropriate application of goodness a self-evident sensibility or a power conception or power understanding? To me, it's slightly different. It's an awareness rather than a self-evident sensibility. But kind of becomes a self-evident sensibility too when you understand inappropriate application of goodness. It makes us sensible to not to do so. It's sort of a reverse one.
Right, right.
But it's nuanced, it's sophisticated. Where did Erica go? Sorry, Erica, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Yeah. We don't want to usurp you here. Don't mean to at all. It's all on the topic, yeah?
I'm probably going to show up tomorrow.
It's really a big deal. So, again, I feel that in our dictionary of power, since we were talking about self-evident sensibilities, there are also these deep conceptions of understanding, which are really, really, really potent, like inappropriate application of goodness, right?
Mm-hmm.
They add something to our character that those self-evident sensibilities, which are the foundation stones, and this does something else to it, yeah?
Yeah.
What do you call, okay, our characters are our basic foundation stone, but what do you call that side of yourself that, for instance, is now responding to this inappropriate application of goodness, which is a nuance, that's a sophistication, and it goes towards some other part of us? It's not personality.
Oh,
Is
my,
the one woman buffet still at it?
yeah, she just came over with another plate of food as a joke.
Yeah, the morphing buffet.
That's right.
Wow. Uh,
um,
could we
I'm not,
say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I'm not sure I understand the question. What do we?
Yeah, that's why I was going to suggest it here, because it's an open-ended question, but I'm sort of exploring, and it's not really a question that has an answer. I would say that I feel that that side of ourselves is our predilection, and I don't know if there's a noun for the side of us. You know what I mean? That's been made into an aspect of self, right? So we can call it our predilection self, if you want to say that. Or maybe our core desire self, or whatever you want to call that. But I feel that when we connect those understandings to it, like inappropriate application of goodness, you're saying, this goes to my heart, as it were. I don't want to be doing this, but it's a misunderstanding. So yes, it goes to beliefs, but it goes deeper than beliefs. It goes to understandings. So I suppose it's kind of part of your character, but it's also part of what gives you joy, what gives you pleasure, what you really want to do. It goes to motivations, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's where it ties in. So it goes to motivation. We've got character and we've got motivations, and that's why I was coming at it from that predilections point of view, because your predilections are like your real deep rooted, real super awesome motivations. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And that's important. We can't just have our character in order. If you have good character but you've got no real motivations, you're kind of dead in the water, no?
True.
Yeah. As Joan said, understand motivations, understand humans. You want to understand people, just look at their motivations. You understand them really, really fast. So we need to do this with ourselves too. So if we look at our dictionary of character and take out some of those self-evident sensibilities, and we start looking at our predilections, in other words, our motivations, we say, oh, oh, clarity of intent. Intent's all about context and motivation, right? That's why intent is so sophisticated, because you cannot have an intent and you cannot be appropriate if you do not know what your motivations are. It's not possible, right? Or without knowing context. So this understanding of exactly what comprises appropriateness, it's innate. We kind of hardwired to understand. We are just leveraging that. But we're not always so sure about our motivations.
Right. Yeah.
If we now look at motivations in the context of impeccability, then we have to look at our motivations, connect them to conscience. This is where our character now starts to, that's the connecting link between character and predilections, right? It's conscience. If I'm motivated to do something, but it presses on my conscience, I can't do it. My personal predilections are free. My conscience is in no way, it's totally on board. Yeah? Or hopefully.
Right.
Either way, we need to ensure that our motivations do align with our character via that connecting link of conscience. Yes,
Right.
and I feel in case this lightness that she's feeling, it is because her conscience has been freed. Don't do wrong. This I can do all day long, and it's not about not doing wrong only or not doing bad. It is particularly that Kay is absolutely crystal clear that this is a way to do good.
Mm-hmm.
Any other way, it impacts on your conscience. Is it really good? Am I interfering? Do I know what's going on? But not doing harm. This I know is a good I can do all day long with freedom of conscience.
Right.
And that freedom of conscience frees up the energy. This is a big deal. This is a very, 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 very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Massive, massive, magical deal.
Yeah.
That's a big, big deal. To bring this all full circle, and now we're coming back to our fear. So let's say, how do we apply this to fear? What are my deep motivations? My motivations are to be sensible, to be sober, to be efficient, not to be bullied, not to be affected by fear, etc., etc. How can I, in clean conscience, connect this to my character, right?
Right.
Where does strategy fall into things?
Mm.
As a label, is it a self-evident sensibility? Is it a predilection? Is it a motivation? Is it a belief? Is it a feeling?
I don't think strategy is a self-evident sensibility necessarily.
No, I don't either. That's why I'm asking.
But I don't know what I would call it exactly. I mean, it is in a way, I guess, because you could argue that energy management and all those
Correct. In a way, yes. Yes.
strategy has something there's an awareness component to strategy.
Exactly. And understanding too. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you in. Sorry, I was just adding that. Sorry, keep going.
I don't know. I guess it's somewhere.
I agree. For me, strategy kind of falls in its own little spot just by itself. It's sort of its own unique deal, because really strategy is about leveraging energy, right? Almost all of our other tools are either about energy expenditure, which is feeling, or energy investiture, right, which is being sensible. But strategy is leveraging energy.
True.
Yeah, it's multiplying energy. It's turning a little into a great quantity. So strategy is kind of a magic, no?
True.
Isn't that incredible? So to me, strategy falls under understandings, that heading of, if I were to say, I've got self-evident sensibilities, feelings, beliefs, motivations or predilections, and then I've got understandings. And inappropriate application of goodness, I kind of put into that capital U understandings tab as well. And those understandings, I really, really make every effort to know all the way through into my bones.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I fear, if I don't know them innately, I fear, like feelings and beliefs, they will disappear when I reboot the computer.
Right.
They need to be almost, some of these things are so critical, like strategy, they almost need to get to be hardwired.
Mm-hmm.
They base, like when you reboot, it's in those boot instructions: be strategic,
Right.
be impeccable, be appropriate. You put those through together, be aware, you can't go wrong, really. No,
Right.
they all lead to each other. But you can have awareness and impeccability without strategy, and you can get into trouble really quickly. Yeah.
True.
Same thing with inappropriate application of goodness. Without that understanding, we can get into trouble in a hurry. Well, I guess that would be the core character trait of humility. If you are truly humble, inappropriate application of goodness is quite difficult, especially if you are also really and truly self-honest.
Interesting. If you're truly humble and honest, self-honest. I have to think about that.
If you are truly and humble and truly self-honest, not just regular honest, self-honest, right? Put those two together. How do you believe anything?
How do you believe anything?
Yeah. You can't really. If I'm truly, truly self-honest and humble, I can say, how do I know my belief is true?
Well, I mean, I guess for me, part of what I've been thinking about lately has been your own sort of not validating your own experience exactly, but I think, I mean, I guess for me, my initial thought about it is I can believe my own experience. I can't necessarily say that my experience is the same experience that anyone else is having, or that it's the right way or the only way, or it's better than anything else. But if I don't believe my own experience, then what? I mean, I don't know. Can we navigate life without any belief at all?
That's a great question. That's an excellently fabulous, awesome question.
I think if you say these are my current beliefs and leave room for changing them when you get more information,
Right.
then there's nothing wrong with saying this is what I think right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, if I have a belief about what's good and right for me, if I don't have any belief about what's good and right, then how do I make choices?
Yeah.
To make
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
Well, now it's tied all together with this magic of our strategy. This is the genius of our Spirit Warrior strategy, which says we set our strategy in such a way that we are going to get value whether it's true or not. In other words, we're going to get value from our beliefs. We don't care if they're true or not. We are going to cover ourselves in both ways. That's why strategy is so absolutely consistent. We cannot easily get by in life without beliefs. We sort of forced to. But because we're forced to and we know they're compromised, we go to that color option of the black and white, right or wrong. The color option says I get value either way.
Right.
That's how I deal with the necessity of needing to have beliefs, not just beliefs, but also assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to live without assumptions. Yeah. I wouldn't go to restaurants if I couldn't live with assumptions.
True.
Yeah. I wouldn't take any medicine. You'd live in a horrible world. It's like living in a world without trust.
Right.
You cannot live without trust. So we need to set it up in either case that we covered. And this is very important. Which brings us to another key component in all of this, understanding of probability.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely essential. How likely is it that I'm going to get poisoned going to a restaurant? Low probability. So I can trust. I have to trust.
Right.
Otherwise, I have to believe. I have to assume. Otherwise, I have to take it out of my life. I live in paranoia, which it's miserable. Then, okay, I might live a little longer, but I live miserably longer. Like I said, if I have to change my diet and live a few years longer, but miserably for the rest of my life, no, thank you very much. You can keep your fancy, healthy diet. But I do fairly mean that. I really do. Within reason, obviously.
Right.
But, there's some diets for me personally. This would be torture every single day.
Right.
I'm happy to forego that little bit of extra life. Really, I am. Instead of torture, anybody would. It just happens to be my peculiarity, of course. But it makes the point though that we have to make these trade-offs to understand. And again, probability. So a little bit of statistical understanding is a very key part of our core makeup, probability particularly. Which is just basic statistics. Yeah.
Right.
But we need this. Don't we need this basic assessment of probability as a core survival skill?
Probably true.
Absolutely core. Okay, that rustle in the bush. It sounds like a bird, but it might be the lion or a snake. How probable is it? Well, we have to work this out.
Right.
How much are you willing to risk? Effort
Right.
versus reward. So our impeccability is all about minimizing risk, as we spoke about the other day. Yes,
Mhm.
that's it. That's what we're about. We are using every means at our disposal to minimize the risk, but
Mhm.
not in a way that it's so detrimental to our lives that it's just, we're living in that paranoid safety. Yeah,
Right.
that's just horrible. You can't live that way. So we have to tolerate some risk, but it's about cutting the risk to a minimum.
Right.
It's minimizing risk, not trying to eliminate.
Right.
Yeah. But it's interesting that one of our core foundational, because now our conversation has morphed here to core foundational parts of ourself, right? Like we said, okay, our character, but we can say self rather, because there's our character, there's our motivations, there's our understandings. We have different parts of us that we've evolved, right? One of those core understandings is probability.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, right? Because probability is so intricately connected to strategy that we can just right away put it under strategy. Because isn't risk assessment strategy?
True.
It's totally strategy. Yeah. A strategy is an unbelievably potent thing. It's like context. It is a power term.
Right.
Context is another one that's sort of a bit of an anomaly, like strategy. It's not really a self-evident sensibility,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an understanding, that capital U understanding, that, oh boy, when we really, really, really understand context, and of course motivation also, which is another one that's not necessarily a self-evident sensibility. But
Mm-hmm.
we take strategy, context, motivation. Ah, you get appropriateness, and you get not just appropriateness, but the ability to be maximally appropriate,
Right.
magically appropriate. Right? You can make more out of nothing with
Right.
strategy. Where does creativity fit into this?
Mm.
Imagination.
Mm.
Mm.
I mean, that for me, creativity is a self-evident kind of thing. I mean, I think it's
Yes, creativity is a self-evident sensibility. Yes.
that
Yeah.
relies on any kind of awareness. It just is for me.
Right. Same with imagination,
Right.
self-evident sensibilities. What about play?
Mm. That's an interesting question because capital P play is related to strategy, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yes, and yes, and joy, of course, too, and
right,
learning. Yeah. So, yeah. So if we look at the usefulness that we get out of play, does it not become a self-evident sensibility? It's sensible to play, and it's self-evident. Why? Because you enjoy it and you get value out of it. Duh. How is this not self-evident sensibility? It's like it's one of the most self-evident sensibilities you can possibly imagine. Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool. You think now joy, elation, bliss, rapture, ecstasy, reverence, grace, all of those become self-evident sensibilities, no?
true.
Wow. What a thing. What a thing. What a thing. So how now if we take strategy and we add in creativity and imagination and play, we get to really, really magical strategies, right?
True.
Yeah. I mean, we get very creative out of the box strategies of how to deal with things. Like the story, it's a story we read, okay. There'll be other story where she deals with nasty man. Did I read it to you the other day or no?
I don't think so.
Anyway. It was, oh no, it's to Donna. Uh, Donna was saying, sometimes I just feel like smacking people, but then I feel no, but that's not what the new noble will do, and it just goes against my deeper goodness, and then she was feeling all stressed and beating herself up for wanting to smack people that really did need a smack, right? And it was appropriate. So there's a Biala's little snippet story about Nasty Man is his name, and how Biala deals with him, just to show alternative ways of dealing with things, that we can use creativity. That's a capital D diplomacy story. So we'll get to it when we do that. But yeah, there are alternative ways that we can deal with things through creativity and imagination combined with strategy. And now we come back to the starting point of this, which was about the fear and how to deal with it, right? and unhooking from that belief feeling
Mhm.
cycle that locks you into the stuff. We
Right.
can change our reality by changing our feelings. How do we do that? That act of will. Where does that act of will come from? Doesn't come from the feeling or the belief, right?
Right. Yeah. I guess motivation from your character.
Exactly. Exactly. From your awareness, from your sensibility, from your own sobriety, in other words. Yeah.
Right.
This is what we are looking. This is the side of us that we are actualizing in order to deal with this lunatic loop of
Mhm.
fear, of feeling and belief, right? Which is fear. Fear is a loop of inappropriate feeling and belief feeding on itself. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Fear is a lunatic loop of feeling and belief feeding on themselves. That's a nice quote there. Well, let me write it down. I'm going to say feeding and self reinforcing on themselves. Okay. Fear is a lunatic loop of feeling and belief feeding and self reinforcing on themselves. You can make it simple, just saying that's them reinforcing themselves. Yeah, make it simpler. There we go. Fear is a lunatic loop of feeling and belief self reinforcing themselves. Okay.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
key to this all is we can change our beliefs by changing our feeling. So
Mhm.
we've got fear, and we say, let's just change this perception of the circumstance just a little bit to change the way we feel about it. That's going to change the way we believe it has to be. Or if the fear part is the big deal, first, the most predominant one, they say, let's just believe a little differently and see if that can change the feeling. And now we can leverage those two to use the one to change the other,
Right.
whichever is the one that is too stuck. There's some people, like, look at religious beliefs. They can't change the belief, but they can change the feeling, which leads to the belief, and so on and go. So we can leverage these two, or maybe do both. But take, for instance, the fear, and take the beliefs that are involved with the fear situation. Let's just say the fear of a bully in the office, right? To use something that's maybe pertinent. What are the beliefs involved? We start to write down all of those beliefs. We believe we can't do anything. We believe there's no choice. We believe that when they come, we're going to respond and react in a particular way. And we should look at that belief. Oh, that's a really potent one. When he does this or she does this, I'm going to respond in a particular way. Why exactly? Is this an absolute law of nature? That is this a fact, or is it a belief? Oh, it's a belief. Can it be changed? Well, yeah. Do you believe it can be changed? No, I don't believe it can be changed. But so we're starting to say, but the more we examine those beliefs, just the fact that they have been labeled beliefs on our list,
Mhm.
we go back and say, oh, wait a second, is a belief a fact? No. So none of this is fact. Means it's all subject to change. How becomes a different story. Now we got to start getting strategic. But the key is, if we want to change our feelings, which is the thing that fear is, it's the feeling that's the problem, not the belief necessarily. We need to first change our beliefs, right? I'm not impotent. He's not omnipotent, or she. They don't have complete power over me. I can affect my own moods and feelings. They are not determined by them. Just because I feel it doesn't make it valid, and so on and so on. So
Right.
when we start to get into this, the whole thing changes, right?
Sure.
We can also hypothesize and say, what if I didn't feel? What if I didn't react in a particular way? What if no matter what they did, I just didn't feel scared of them? which would apply if they were a 3-year-old.
Right.
They can do what they like. I'm not going to feel afraid. Yeah.
Right.
So what if that were the case? Then they would have no power whatsoever. Oh, wow. So I just have to learn to feel the way I like to feel. And what are my feelings based on again? What causes my feel? Oh, my beliefs. Oh, is this a belief or a fact that I can choose to feel the way I like to feel?
Right.
It's a fact, no?
Right.
It's not a belief anymore. Whoa! All my other feelings were based on something that could change, on a variable that was like, but here's a fact that I can choose to feel now. I wish to feel. Wow. That changes the whole ballgame right there, doesn't it?
Right.
So what would you need, Erica, in order to implement this? Probably
Sorry.
just practice, right?
Um, wait a minute.
Wow, Erica.
All right. I'm sorry. What did you ask?
No problem. No problem. I'm keen to actually hear your notes there, if you don't mind, because you took us on such a path here today now that I'm like, wow, wow, wow. I need to recap on this, and I want to tighten it all up and grasp it again. So I'm keen to hear your
I
notes there, if you don't mind.
taking notes on the concept of being able to see your fears, especially in relation to another person, as not dependent upon them. So in my example, instead of 3 years old, I was thinking, okay, if there's someone who's eliciting fear in their actions or their words or whatever it is that they're doing, if you imagined that they were an inch tall, would you still be afraid of what they're saying and doing? Would you have the same kind of fear? And so using that kind of perspective shift helps you understand that the really doesn't have anything to do with the other person. It's to do with your beliefs and feelings.
Yes, yes. And also to keep in mind when we do feel those feelings, to remind ourselves, why am I choosing to feel this way again? Because that's the one fact that we have in this whole thing. All the rest was beliefs and feelings, and they were feeding off themselves. But it's a fact that I can choose my feelings, I can choose my beliefs. That's fact, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So when I feel untoward feelings that I don't choose to feel, I say, why am I choosing to feel this? I'm now putting the full responsibility onto me and not external. I've changed a major belief. The belief really that when there's external stuff, I have to feel in a particular way. Here comes bully, I have to feel fear. Says who?
Right.
It's just a belief. I don't have to. When I know I can choose it, my belief is now shifted to a fact. I choose. Might be difficult, might need some practice, but I choose. That's a fact. So now I can enlist my stubborn side to say, I choose. You
Right.
aren't going to make me choose how I feel. I choose. So now I can use the strategy of leveraging myself to achieve my aim.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we practice, this is why, for me, the other question that was asked in group there today, wow, group is really influential today, right, Beena? Was Jocelyn asked, he said, what's your routine in the day? And I took it to mean morning routine. First thing I do before I even move or open my eyes is mood shift.
Mm-hmm.
I practice mood shifting. And the more you do it, of course, you become familiar with it. So now when I feel like I don't want to feel, I say, why am I choosing to feel this way again? Why am I choosing? Because once you start mood shifting, you have to take responsibility for your moods. And once you start to take responsibility for your moods, the whole paradigm changes. Now it's simply a matter of habit, right?
Right.
Which brings us back to our great enemy, habit.
Right.
Habit is not necessarily our greatest enemy, by the way. It's written as our great enemy. It implies that perhaps, but it's not stating it absolutely. We might have other enemies, like indolence, for instance, could be an even greater enemy than habit, no?
Right.
Unawareness. All right, just to make that clear. It just struck me when we were going through it yesterday. With just now, because she's starting again. So I said, oh, great enemy, not greatest.
Right.
Yeah, it's important to you. But this whole thing now, when we look at it in the context of dealing with fear, it changes everything because we are in charge of our beliefs and our feelings.
Mhm.
Deliberateness, that deliberate act of will, this is the key. Deliberate choices determines not just our character, as Beena was pointing out, but also our beliefs and our feelings.
Right.
Deliberate living. What's the subtitle of the Way of Impeccability? A toolbox for deliberate living, right? Yeah. Incredible how that is so foundational, right? I have these things that I say, this I have to remember. This I have to remember. I have to remember to be deliberate. This is transformational. When I'm deliberate, right? That's it. That's it. Deliberate, deliberate. I'm in charge. I have the power. Me. I can choose. I can choose. I can choose. I can deliberately choose. Even better. It all starts to fall into place. All of those connecting things come wrong. When I'm dealing with fear, I choose. It's me. I choose. This is a deliberate action, not undeliberate. It's a
Right.
choice. Yes, I may be immersed in habit. I understand. I'm not stupid. I understand that there may be a habit to deal with. There may be legacy to deal with. But nonetheless, I choose. I can start by choosing to feel less afraid, to feel less scared, to feel less angry, to feel less irritated, and incrementally leverage this power, right? Get through familiarization, incremental familiarization. This is the way to break phobias, no?
Right.
Yeah, same thing. When we have profound, deep fears that are deep rooted, that go way back when, we have to be strategic and say, "Hey, I don't expect to do it in one go because you've now suddenly realized that you in charge of your beliefs through your deep understanding and sensibility, right? And the fact that you can choose your moods. If you can choose your moods, you can choose your moods. You can choose your beliefs, right? Just feel in a way that leads to the belief. And it's very potent, but overnight, not so much. Practice, yes. Another power term. That's why it's dictionary of power. These are all power conceptions, right? Practice, capital P practice. The absolute necessity to have the ability. Because once we know incremental change is needed, we have to have the ability to capital P practice. Yes? If we don't have that ability, we can't change those habits. We can't change incrementally. It's not going to happen. You want to have the patience and you want to have the joy to do so, yeah?
Right.
Wow. I'm just enjoying how it's all connected today, yeah? I mean, we really just kind of zigzagging and looping between one connectivity point and it comes to another and it's all connected, yeah?
For sure.
It's kind of a lot that we're connecting, but it's really cool, no?
Yeah, it is. I've enjoyed it.
Sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much, Erica. Tell me, just give me a summation, please.
No, you're good. Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I can summarize.
As best you can. As best you can. As best.
Man.
That's kind of how I feel. That's why I'm asking you for the summation. Maybe Beena can. Let's try. Let's shift. Let's delegate. Right? Let's delegate. Or shift responsibility. I don't know. Delegate's kind of a euphemism here, but shift responsibility. Can you give us a summary, please, marvelous Beena?
No, when you guys were discussing, I was going through more details about strategy and what is fear, because mostly in our discussion, what we were discussing is, as from my understanding, it was more about social anxiety. That, oh, I cannot do this, I'm not able, and all these things. These are mostly, as to be more specific, it is more related to, which is a kind of fear, of course, but it is just to have more clarity about this whole topic. I was trying to understand that we are discussing more social anxiety and anxiety in general also. And fears, yes, we also, it is included specifically because some people have fear that, okay, what will happen in the future and all these things. So just to be more specific, and when dealing with all these things, we have to first understand that what we are dealing with, because for me, fears are mostly based on future threats and dangers, and it is again, it's an emotion, it's a self-defense mechanism. It is a kind of alert message our body and our emotions give us to get alert and get prepared for something to happen. And anxiety, it comes that we simply say that, okay, we are not able to deal with situations. So this is something I was just, while you guys were discussing, I was going through in detail to understand that what we are dealing with. This is something, again, as I say that before also, because before we discussed that, many sessions before, characters was in our discussion, and I was thinking about that. So I came today with the character that, okay, what is character for me? And it will happen still again. I'm thinking about this fear, social anxiety, and strategy. These three topics, I just make some notes, and I will come later and to completely, after, try to understand it completely. Then I can share my perspective about this.
Yeah, it was so much I feel today. I feel a bit overwhelmed almost, yeah? But it was all on the same topic though. It all loops back together. I mean, my end summation takeaway is that it's up to me. You know, I got a problem, I got something I need to, it's up to me.
Right.
Yes.
That's bottom line, no?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, it is coming
Erica?
down to choices.
Yeah. Say again, the last part, the last word you said, Beena? Comes back
I was
to?
thinking that it is coming down, all trickle down to choice.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's
And
my choice. Not
yes,
that it's coming down to choice itself, but
no,
to my choice. Little different,
yes.
right?
And dealing with fear, I feel that the very, of course, perspective shifting and all other concepts you guys share, for me, it is making the obvious obvious. It's a very key, because sometimes fear, especially fear, is something we know, but it is not obvious for us that how to deal and what it actually is. Just to make obvious can shift whole perspective. So for me, it is a very big part of the strategy to deal with fear is to make the obvious obvious. Because mostly we feel fear of the unknown, and what is unknown, which is not obvious for us. So we can make it obvious for ourselves and for
Really,
others also.
yeah,
Yeah, please.
yeah. And really, when we come down to that fear, like in that office situation or school or wherever, the actual reality is that you are actually quite invulnerable, no?
Yes.
In reality, I'm not talking about physical things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they can't really do anything to you. So it's just, it's a psychological thing, it's emotional thing, belief thing. When you put that concept into your head, it's like, well, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. It's totally
Exactly.
irrelevant. And even if I am physically attacked, okay, it might not be pleasant, but I don't have to be consumed by it. I don't have to go into a panic or whatever. So even there, I have choice. So really, at the end of the day, we are pretty invulnerable, no?
Yeah.
That's quite a thought. It's quite a thought. Wow. Does that resonate in any way with you, Erica?
It does. It's interesting. I mean, I need to keep thinking about it, but for sure.
Yeah. I'm really keen to hear, you going over this when you think these things through the way you do, all the way to the end and all those side tunnels. I'm really keen to hear on this because, I felt like I was kind of chatting a lot and I want to hear from you. It's not about what I think, it's about what you think and how it connects for you and how you can translate this into utilizability.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
That's what I want to hear from you, please, if you don't mind. I really would like an
Well,
condensation of this tightening.
to get moving.
Yeah.
And get back
Yeah,
to
no, I mean next time. Oh, I did mean next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
To hear
It's a
the
big
detail
topic.
next time.
Actually.
Very good.
Actually, it's a
Very
very big topic, and we just opened it. And the more we are, I think that the more you guys were discussing, the more it was opening up for me that, okay, no, it has more layers, and we need to be more precise in all these things.
there's
So
lots.
what I was trying to.
Let's go. Sorry, Beena. Erica has to go. We're holding her. Sorry, Beena. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just as bad.
No, please.
in there for sure. It's a big topic. So
Yeah.
more.
Fantastic, Erica. Fantastic. Are you okay, Erica? You okay?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Fantastic. I love it. Okay, next time we'll continue on this. I'm really keen. And keep in mind tomorrow at 8.
Sarah told me it was 9. She sent out a Facebook invitation.
Yes, Sher is at 9. Jocelyn is at 8.
Oh,
Jocelyn's gonna be explaining all about what qigong is an hour before. Yeah. Correct.
okay.
She said 9 Mountain. No, 8 Mountain, which is 9 Central. Yeah, it's 9 your time. Correct. Yeah.
Well, I will
Okay.
be up
So if you can come an hour earlier than Sher, that would be fantastic.
to try to
If possible.
early enough to catch that. No promises, but
Yeah. Well, we can hope. All right. Brilliant, Erica-Jayne. See you tomorrow.
bye.
Fantastic. Bye-bye, Erica. Bye-bye. Such coolness.